I never thought I'd be the guy writing a story like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 5 years now. At first, everything seemed perfect. Good job, nice house, 2 kids, the usual American dream. But over the last few months, I started noticing little things that didn't sit right. She was more distant, secretive even, always with her phone, hiding her screen from my view. At first, I just figured she was stressed, maybe overwork or something. But then I began catching little hints. I'd see her flinch when I got near her phone, or she'd suddenly remember she had to run an errand right when I started asking questions about her day. The real red flag started when she missed her period. We'd been trying to have another kid, so I thought maybe she was just stressed about that. But she insisted she was fine and she was being careful, whatever that meant. I found it weird, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Then one night, I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well. I figured I'd surprise her, maybe take her out for dinner. I unlocked the door, and that's when I saw her and my best friend Jake. They weren't just talking, they were kissing. The kind of kiss you don't mistake for anything innocent. I froze, staring at them. My mind just shut down for a second. The worst part, Lisa saw me first. She pulled away quickly, her face all twisted up, like she was caught in a trap. Jake looked like he'd seen a ghost. I stood there, stunned, unable to speak, my heart pounding so loud I thought everyone in the neighborhood could hear it. When Lisa finally managed to get some words out, she told me it was nothing, just a mistake, a moment of weakness. She said Jake was just helping her with some work project, that she didn't mean for it to happen and that I had to believe her. But I looked at her bitchy face, her overly defensive tone, her eyes avoiding mine, and I knew she was lying. She always lied. About everything. That moment hit me like a truck. It wasn't just the betrayal of my wife, it was the betrayal of everything I thought we had. I was in shock, anger bubbling up so fast I felt like I was going to explode. But I kept it together, barely. I told her I needed some space and I left. I didn't sleep that night, couldn't stop thinking about how she'd lied to my face all along. How she'd been sneaking around behind my back during the one period I thought we were closest. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind to her lies. And then the thought hit me. If she could do this to me during what was supposed to be the worst day of my dad's funeral, what else was she capable of? That's when I really started to feel the anger, not just at her but at myself for not seeing it sooner. After that night, everything changed. I couldn't look at Lisa the same way. Every little thing she did now felt like a lie. Her fake smiles, the way she'd brush past me like I wasn't even there, even her "I love you" sounded hollow. I was furious, hurt, and confused all at once. I kept replaying that scene in my head over and over. Her lips on Jake, her eyes looking guilty but still trying to act innocent. It was like I'd been living in a bubble and that bubble just burst. The next few days were a nightmare. I couldn't focus on work, couldn't sleep, kept checking her phone, her social media, anything that might give me a clue. I was desperate for answers, but all I got was more lies. She kept insisting it was just a one-time thing, that Jake was just helping her with some project, which I knew was bullshit. That project was just an excuse, and I could see it in her eyes. She was lying, and I was starting to feel like I didn't even know who she was anymore. One day, I decided I needed to confront her again, but this time with more evidence. I went through her phone when she was in the shower, something I never thought I'd do, but I was already past caring. I found texts, photos, even some intimate messages between her and Jake. The worst part, they were talking about plans to meet up again, scheming in a way that made it clear this wasn't just a one-night stand. They had been doing this for weeks, maybe longer. My stomach dropped. I felt like I'd been hit by a train. How could she lie so easily? How could she pretend everything was fine when she was out there, sneaking around with my best friend? I was furious. My mind raced with thoughts of revenge, of how I could tear her world apart. I wanted to confront her right then, but I also knew that I needed to think this through. I wasn't going to lose my mind over a woman who clearly didn't care about me anymore. But I also knew I couldn't just sweep this under the rug. If I was going to do something, it had to be done right. I needed to make her feel what I was feeling, betrayed, humiliated, and completely broken. That's when I started planning my move quietly, carefully. I didn't want her to suspect a thing until I was ready, but deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. The real game was about to start, and I was determined to come out on top, no matter what it took. Over the next week, I kept my cool on the surface, but inside I was boiling. Every moment I wasn't working or pretending to be normal, I was plotting. I needed to catch her red-handed, and I wasn't going to settle for just discovering her affair. I wanted her to feel the full weight of it. I started setting up little traps, things I knew she couldn't resist or deny. I installed a hidden app on her phone to monitor her messages, and I even left my laptop open one night with her email account logged in, just to see what she'd do. That's how I found out she'd already made plans to meet Jake again that weekend. She was bitchy about it when I confronted her. I remember her rolling her eyes and snapping at me. "It's none of your business, Mike. You're just overreacting because you're insecure." That made me want to scream. Like this was all my fault. Like I was crazy for feeling betrayed. She kept throwing out excuses, saying Jake was just a friend, that I was paranoid, that I was jealous for no reason. But I knew better. I knew the truth, plain as day. She was cheating on me, and she didn't even bother to hide it anymore. During the confrontation, she kept lying, her voice dripping with contempt. "You think I get anything out of this? Sex with Jake, please. It's just a stupid mistake, a fling. It doesn't mean anything." She looked angry, like I was the one causing trouble, but I saw right through her bitchy smirk, her eye rolling, her dismissive tone. I could tell she enjoyed lying just to mess with my head. She was always good at keeping her poker face, but I saw cracks now. I saw her desperation, her guilt hidden behind that cruel attitude. That night I was so pissed I could feel my blood boiling. I wanted to call her out in front of everyone, to humiliate her the way she'd been humiliating me, but I held back. I knew I had to be smart about this. If I went off half-cocked, I'd just give her an excuse to deny everything even more. So instead, I sent her a simple message. I knew everything, that I'd been watching, that I had the evidence. Her reaction. She just sneered at me through her phone, playing the victim, like I was the one ruining everything, not her. That's when I realized. She'd been lying so much, she'd convinced herself she was untouchable, but I wasn't done yet. I needed to hit her where it hurt. I had a plan brewing, one that would wipe the smug look off her face and make her regret ever crossing the line. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been living in a nightmare. It was like the woman I loved was a stranger, mean, manipulative, and utterly selfish. Every day since the discovery, I felt like I was walking on thin ice, trying to keep my emotions in check while secretly plotting my revenge. I didn't want to just leave her, though part of me wondered if I should. I wanted her to suffer, to realize how much she'd destroyed our marriage. And if that meant I had to get my hands dirty a little, so be it. I was done playing nice. This was war, and I was ready to fight for what was mine, my dignity, my pride, and my life without her lies. The night I decided to strike back, I felt like I had the whole world on my shoulders. I'd been watching her every move, gathering every piece of evidence I could find. My goal was to make her realize that I wasn't messing around, that I knew everything. I wanted her to feel the fear, the guilt, the shame she'd been so eager to throw my way. I knew she'd be expecting some half-baked confrontation, maybe some tears or a pathetic denial. But I had something different in mind. That Saturday, she was acting even more bitchy than usual, snapping at the kids and throwing attitude around the house. She was trying to pretend she was innocent, but I saw right through her. I told her I had to go out for a business meeting, and I left, but I didn't go to work. Instead, I drove to a nearby hotel where I'd made arrangements earlier that week. I had called Jake, told him to meet me there, and I was planning to catch him in the act, or at least make sure he knew I knew everything. When Jake arrived, I played it cool. I pretended I was just there to have a chat, but inside I was boiling with anger. I had the evidence on my phone, screenshots of their messages, pictures of the times they'd met, even some voice recordings. I threw all of it on the table, watching their reactions. Jake looked guilty as hell, but Lisa, she played the victim so well, acting like she was the misunderstood wife who's been wronged. She tried to deny everything, saying it was just a fling, a mistake, that I didn't understand her. I admit I was furious, but I stayed calm, cold even. I told her I was done with her lies, that I had enough proof to ruin both their lives if I wanted. Lisa's face twisted in anger. "You're crazy," she spat at me. "All of this is just a setup. You're overreacting because you're insecure. You're just jealous because Jake's better in bed than you ever were." Her words hit like a slap. That's when I realized how much she hated me, how she was willing to say anything to save her ego. I looked at her, so bitchy and manipulative, and I knew there was no saving this marriage. She was beyond repair. But I wasn't just going to walk away. No, I wanted her to feel the loss, the devastation. I told her I was going to expose her to everyone, her friends, our family, her job. I wanted her to see what kind of person she'd become. I wanted her to regret the day she decided to cheat on me, especially during my dad's funeral. That was the final straw. How could she do that? How could she betray me like that in the worst moment of my life? After I left the hotel, I went straight home. I didn't say a word to her that night. I just sat in the dark, replaying everything, feeling lighter but more broken than ever. I knew I had crossed a line and I didn't care. She'd pushed me to the edge, and now I was ready to do whatever it took to make her pay. The truth was out and there was no going back. I felt a strange mix of relief and despair. The game was on and I wasn't going to lose. The days that followed were a blur of chaos. I started telling a few people, close friends, a couple of relatives, just enough to make her realize I wasn't joking. I wanted her to see that I was serious about exposing her, about making her life miserable if she thought she could betray me during one of the hardest times of my life. Meanwhile, Lisa was trying to play the victim, throwing tantrums, calling me names, acting like I'd lost my mind. But I knew better. I knew her game. She was bitchy, always trying to twist everything around, claiming I was the one overreacting, that I was ruining everything. She'd snap at me in front of the kids, trying to make me look like the bad guy. But I wasn't backing down. I kept pushing her to admit the truth, kept showing her I had the evidence. Every time she lied, I felt a mixture of disgust and satisfaction. She thought she was so smart, so clever, but I had her cornered. One night she finally broke down. She was crying, screaming, begging me to forgive her, saying how she was sorry and it was just a mistake. She looked so bitchy and manipulative in that moment, trying to guilt-trip me, trying to make me feel guilty for catching her. I just stared at her and told her she was a fucking liar, that I knew everything, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I told her I was done, that I was going to end this marriage, no matter how much she begged. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt angry and betrayed, but also heartbroken. I'd never imagined my life would come to this. I'd built everything with her, our home, our family, my trust, and she had thrown it all away for Jake's sex and some cheap thrill. During her breakdown, I felt a sick satisfaction. She had finally lost control, and I knew she was finally starting to realize how much she'd messed up. But honestly, I didn't care if she was sorry or not. That betrayal, especially during my father's funeral, had broken me. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of grief, anger, and shame. I made my decision then. I was done trying to fix things. She had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. I told her I was filing for divorce, that I wanted her out of my life for good. I knew she'd try to fight me, but I was already one step ahead. I had lawyers on speed dial, a plan to make sure she couldn't lie her way out of this. I was prepared to ruin her if that's what it took to make her understand she couldn't keep lying and cheating and pretending she was innocent. And even as I felt that rush of revenge, underneath it all was a bitter, aching pain. I loved her. At least, I thought I did. But her actions had shown me who she really was. A bitchy, manipulative woman who betrayed everything I believed in. I realized I had wasted years investing in a relationship that was based on lies. All those nights, all those moments where I trusted her, gone. I was left with nothing but the raw truth and a gut-wrenching sense that I'd been sick to my stomach for a long time. Now all I could do was move forward and try to rebuild whatever was left of my life. The divorce was finalized a few months later, and honestly, it was both a relief and a heavy weight lifted off my shoulders. I won't lie, there are nights I still lie in bed and replay everything, wondering how I missed all the signs, how I trusted her so blindly. But mostly I'm angry. Angry that she could be so bitchy and manipulative, so cold and calculating, especially during my dad's funeral. That's the part that haunts me, her lying, her sneaking around with Jake, knowing full well how much it would hurt me. I still think about it sometimes, how much I loved her once and how that love turned into nothing but a sick joke. I learned some hard lessons from all this. For one, trust is fragile, and I'll never take it for granted again. I also learned that some people are just selfish and manipulative, people who will lie to your face, screw you over, and then expect you to forgive them. The biggest lesson, maybe, is that revenge isn't worth it in the end. It made me feel powerful for a little while, but it didn't bring me any happiness or closure. The only real closure came when I finally walked away, knowing I dodged a bullet. I realized I deserved better than someone who could betray me so easily, especially during the worst moment of my life. Looking back now, I see how much I was blinded by love and hope. I wanted to believe she was the woman I married, that she was loyal and honest. But she was just a bitchy, lying woman who saw me as a fool, someone she could manipulate and use. I don't hate her anymore. I just feel sorry for her that she threw away her marriage for some cheap sex and lies. I've started to rebuild my life, focusing on my kids, my career, and myself. I know I'll never forget what happened, but I also know I won't let it define me. If there's one thing I want to tell anyone reading this, it's this: trust your gut. Don't ignore the signs, no matter how much you love someone. And if you find out they're cheating or lying, don't hold on to the hope that they'll change, because most of the time they won't. They'll just keep lying until there's nothing left. Be brave enough to walk away, even if it hurts, because staying will only make it worse in the long run. And yeah, maybe one day I'll find someone who genuinely cares about me, someone who won't betray me during my darkest hour. I hope so. But for now, I'm just glad I'm finally free from the lies, the betrayals, and the bitchy game she played. I've learned that sometimes the only way to truly move on is to face the truth head on and never look back.